Okay, let's be honest, we have all dreamt of an imaginary scenario where our favorite heroes can come together to duke it out in the most legendary of settings. Now, what if I told you that these heroes are the 13 Flame Chasers, and the setting they are in is based on Greek and Roman mythologies? Well, this year, the eternal land of Amphoreus is all of that and more. I still remember my first time exploring Dragonspine, a mountain where the Anemo Archon and the Dragon of the East defeated the corrupted dragon Durin 500 years ago, only to stumble upon a hidden cave revealing that Dragonspine was once Salvindagnir, an ancient civilization predating Mondstadt by thousands of years. Then have both of those put to shame by the walking historical monument known as Zhongli over in Liyue. I think you understand what I'm trying to get at here. This is Hoyoverse's magic. They craft worlds with fascinating histories only to unravel even greater history halfway through, making the initial backstory they showed look like a joke. Honkai Star Rail applies this formula on a cosmic level through the trailblaze of Akiville's Nameless, and this time their journey has led them to the Greek-inspired world of Amphoreus. But there's a catch. This mysterious world is one never before explored by Akiville, and its heroes, known as the Chrysos Heirs, are variations of characters previously seen from the Hoyoverse and beyond. Just to name a few, we've got a Kevin variant, a Gilgamesh variant, the literal main antagonist from the previous world, Sunday, is now on the Astral Express, the Trailblazer got a mimetic rabbit that can transform into a freaking titan, and all of them are facing a group of gods consumed by a black tide of madness. Amphoreus is pretty much Hoyoverse's first ever Avengers Assemble storyline with an absolute all-star dream cast in a fascinating world, and I am here to tell you all about it. The most important thing you need to know about Amphoreus is that it is an effectively dying world in need of being reborn through an event known as the Miracle of Genesis, which requires the authorities of 12 local deities known as the Titans to be initiated. Speaking of the Titans, there are a total of 15 gods who shape and influence Amphoreus, both from within and from beyond. These gods consist of 5 groups of 3, which can be divided into 3 eons in the first group and 12 Titans occupying the other 4 groups. The first of the 3 eons is Nous, the Erudition. It was the one who gave the people of Amphoreus their tripartite prophecy through the Sky Father Kephale, the same prophecy which the Chrysos Heirs currently follow. The second is Fuli, the Remembrance, who seeks to preserve the memory and history of Amphoreus before and after its rebirth. The third Aeon at play is currently left an enigma, but Black Swan from Fuli's Garden of Recollection speculates that they could be one of the following 3. Either Hu, the Equilibrium, Mythos, the Enigmata, or Lang, the Permanence. The interwoven influences of these Aeons' 3 paths in their struggle to shape Amphoreus' destiny have given rise to the mass of chaotic matter and the white ribbon of light which shrouds this world, concealing it from the rest of the universe. From the inside, Amphoreus' destiny is actively being co-authored by the 3 aforementioned Aeons, which is an incredibly important detail for you to keep in mind, since it implies that Amphoreus' history and fate are subject to 3 overlapping realities based on the 3 stories written by each Aeon. This state of affairs is remarkably reminiscent of how Simulanka's goddess of fate, Anya Andersdotter, wrote 3 different drafts for Simulanka's history, but couldn't decide which to pick until her cat walked all over them and the 3 became one. Now, in the interest of time and for the sake of simplicity, this is as far as I will be entertaining that idea. I just wanted to give you guys another interesting angle to consider. Moving on to Amphoreus' local deities, the 12 Titans, as I mentioned earlier, they are split into 4 categories, with those being Fate, Foundation, Creation, and Calamity. Each of these Titans holds an authority known as a core flame, through which their divine might manifests. As Amphoreus' legends recount, first were the 3 Titans of Fate, who conceived space, time, and laws. The Arianus, the Gate of Infinity, Talanton, the Scale of Justice, and Oronix, the Veil of Evernight. Janus, the eldest of the three titans, is the god of passage, which is a very unique way to say god of transitions, so let me explain. In Roman mythology, Janus is the two-faced deity of all beginnings and endings, making him a god of duality and a god of transitions. This includes all transitions, whether temporal transitions from one moment to another, philosophical transitions such as choices, or spatial transitions like gates, doorways, and passages, hence his in-game title as the Passage Titan. Janus is also one of the rare Roman gods with no direct Greek equivalent, and instead originates from Culsans, a god of the Etruscan civilization who inhabited ancient Italy before the Romans. After the Romans adopted him, Janus became the son of Caelus, the primordial god of the sky and the Roman counterpart to Uranus in Greek mythology. I am mentioning this because Caelus happens to be the Trailblazer's name in Star Rail, and while it isn't relevant at the moment, this detail might be foreshadowing what will happen during the miracle of Genesis with the three aeons, especially considering how one of these aeons, Thule, gives Caelus a pinion through which he can write the story of Amphoreus. Of course, everything I said and will say about Caelus equally applies to Stella. It's just that Caelus has a direct name connection to Janus' father, making it easier to explain what I mean through him. Anyway, with Janus came Talanton, the Titan of Laws, whose name in Greek means balance. They are the one who bound Amphoreus to its strict rules, and vowed to forever uphold justice as both the divine arbiter and executor of all laws. Next is Oronyx, the youngest of the three fates and the Titan god of time and night. This Titan's divine domain is perfectly reflected in their name, Oronyx, which is a fusion of the Greek primordial deities of time and night, Kronos and Nyx. As the keeper of the past, present, and future, this Titan collects the world's eroded memories, ensuring they are not forgotten. Oronyx is described by both Phainon and Castoris as being childlike in nature, which becomes more evident when they call for their mother after seeing the Trailblazer. After the three fates came the three foundation titans: Georios, the pillar of the earth, Phagusa, the chalice of plenty, and Aquila, the eye of twilight. Together, they fashioned the earth, the oceans, and the heavens, creating a nursery for the first seedlings of life to mature. Then came the Sky Father, the world-bearing Titan Kephili, the throne of worlds. He saw the beautiful creations of his fellow Titans, yet also lamented their loneliness. And so, Kephili molded clay figures in his likeness and bestowed them with the breath of life through his golden blood, earning the title Father of All People. The Sky Father draws inspiration from two prominent figures in Greek mythology. The first is Cronus, not to be mistaken with the time god Kronos. He was the king of the Titans and the father of the Olympians. While the second is Atlas, the Titan condemned by Zeus to hold up the heavens for all eternity. Furthermore, Kephali's name comes from the ancient Greek word for head, kephale, signifying his status as the throne of worlds and the king of the gods, so to speak. Kephale was also followed by two other creation titans. Circes, the bow of rift, granted reason and wisdom to Kephale's creation so that they may know how to learn and reflect, while Mnestia, the chrysalis of gold, gave them an eye for beauty, love, and romance. With this, creation was complete, and a glorious golden age came forth where civilization prospered, the land did not erode, nor did humans age or die. But alas, prosperity would not last forever. The three titans of calamity, embodiments of strife, death, and trickery, descended upon the world, initiating an era of war. The first is Nikador, the lance of fury revered by the tribes of Castrum Kremnos. The second is Thanatos, the hand of shadow. And third is Zagreus, the coin of whimsy. While Nikador simply comes from the ancient Greek Nikator, meaning conquer, the other two titans of death and trickery are derived directly from the Greek pantheon. Thanatos is the Greek god of death and the son of Nyx, the primordial goddess of night. But Zagreus is a bit more tricky, no pun intended, although I suppose this makes sense given his authority in Star Rail. You see, depending on the myth and the author, Zagreus in Greek mythology can be anything from the son of Zeus and Persephone, to the son of Hades and Persephone, to an Orphic variation of Dionysus, or even an ancient god before Dionysus, Zeus, and Hades. I looked into it before making this video, and it looks like researchers don't have a historical consensus on where this deity even originates from. Regardless, in most historical accounts of Zagreus, including the earliest known ones, he is associated with the underworld. Hence why pop culture depictions of Zagreus have him as the son of Hades, or lump him with Thanatos as Star Rail does with the three titans of Calamity. Now, do keep in mind that these depictions I outlined of the Titans are based on the legends and mythologies of Amphoreus, which in turn are heavily influenced by the paths of the three eons who seek to dictate this world's destiny. Thus, the true origins of the Titans and their history are currently left up for speculation until we learn more about them in the future. What we do know for certain, though, is that at some point in time, a black tide fell upon Amphoreus, corrupting its great Titans and driving them into madness. And in the dark pit of insanity that the gods fell into, abandonment, chaos, and destruction would soon blight the mortal realm. The Sky Titan, great Aquila, closed their divine eye and darkness shrouded the firmament. From that point onwards, the stars became a taboo, and humanity was forbidden from peering into the secrets of what lies beyond the sky. To shield life from the insanity of his kin, the great father Kephale bore the weight of the dawn device upon his shoulders and went to sleep. This act ensured the cycle of day and night would continue, but it came at a cost. The Throne of Worlds could no longer answer to humanity's prayers. Yet, as the saying goes, hard times create strong men, so only through adversity are heroes born to extinguish suffering. And it is the story of these heroes which we now follow. So let me introduce you to these heroes, the Chrysos Heirs, deliverers with golden blood. To put it simply, the Chrysos Heirs are a group of people with Kephale's divine golden blood, who are tasked with a mission known as the Flame Chase, which compels them to kill the Titans and claim their core flames, becoming demigods in the process. Given their roles, there can only be 12 Chrysos Heirs to each of the 12 Titans at any given moment. And once an heir obtains a core flame, they are to take it to the Vortex of Genesis, a divine location at the center of Amphoreus, concealed by the power of the ocean titan Fagusa. There, two things will happen. First, the recovered core flame will be offered to the Voice of the Tides, lighting up its authority's constellation. Then, the chosen Chrysos Heir will undertake the core flame trial, a test that determines whether they are worthy of ascending to godhood and claiming the Titan's divine throne. So far, the Trailblazer and Don Hung have met 5 such heirs, 2 of whom completed all aforementioned tasks, those being Tribios and Aglaia, while 3 others, Maidimos, Castoris, and Phynon, are still waiting for their core flames. Now, there are other Chrysos Heirs we know of but have yet to meet, such as Anaxagoras, Cythera, and Hyacine. I strongly suspect that they are, or will become, the inheritors of Reason, Trickery, and Sky core flames respectively. However, given that they will appear later down the line, I would rather focus on the ones we know. When Don Hung and the Trailblazer fall into the Abyss of Fate, they engage with Nikador's Stone Warriors until they are found by Phynon, who is pretty much the most important of all the Chrysos Heirs, and I can confidently say this because this good sir happens to be a variation of Kiana Kaslana. Well, more accurately, a variation of Kevin Kaslana, who in turn is a variation of Kiana's design. And by that, I am talking about the original Kiana Kaslana from Fly Me to the Moon. Now, Phynon is the hero of Amphoreus, or at least he's being built up as one. Perhaps there will be a plot twist later down the line in the story, we don't know. However, if we humor the narrative and take the story at face value, Aglaia tells the Trailblazer that the Chrysos Heirs, each and all, are born with a special gift, but also some kind of defect. All except Phynon. In her eyes, he is the perfect hero, one who is destined to become a god. Even the developers call him the nameless hero who engraves the marks of eternity, making it clear that Phynon will be the one to claim the world-bearing core flame from the Sky Father Kephale, the Throne of Worlds. Also, since I'm on this topic, for anyone who might be worried that Finon will be another case of a perfect hero who never loses and gets glazed by all the characters around him like Mavuika, I can almost assure you that this won't be the case. The heroic saga of Flame Chase is only the first Trailblaze mission on Amphoreus, and we have already seen several instances of Finon failing to accomplish things his way and having to rely on the wisdom of his allies. Additionally, we know for a fact that Finon isn't a perfect hero who always wins because during the quest Hero Bear Thy Core Flame, Maidi and Castoris reveal that Finon is a man who failed to protect everything and everyone near and dear to him in the past. So rest assured, this hero is going to be significantly better than whatever the hell Mavuika was supposed to be in Natlan. Whenever Aglaya, Castoris, and even Midemos to a lesser extent talk highly of Finon's character and potential, they are not glazing him, instead it's a reflection of their expectations for what they hope he will become as Amphoreus' fated hero, as the Deliverer. A role which Finon is willing to fulfill despite never actually going out of his way to seek. The Deliverer, in other words, is his reluctant destiny. And we know this thanks to the flashback we get of Finon and Serene, where we get to see how ever since his youth Finon was fated to bear the mantle of the Deliverer, something which Serene had prophesied about him all the way back in their childhood home of Ides Elysiae. Speaking of Serene, this young lady is obviously meant to be a variation of a character called Elysia from Kevin Caslana's original Flame Chasers in Honkai Impact 3rd. And just as with Serene and Finon in Amphoreus, Elysia is quite close to Kevin, holding the second rank amongst the Flame Chasers only after Kevin himself. It's also worth noting that Elysia assisted Kevin in leading the Flame Chasers, where they were both codenamed Ego and Deliverance respectively. So given that Finon carried over the title of Deliverer from his Honkai Impact counterpart, while Cyrene is the first person to speak to him of such fate, I wouldn't be surprised if the concept of ego plays a big role in Cyrene's character. Remember, the scene we are shown of Serene and Finon takes place during the latter's childhood in his home of Ides Elysiae, and putting aside the clear reference to Elysia in the name of Finon's birthplace, Midemos tells the Trailblazer that Finon lost everyone and everything he once loved. This implies that Serene is already dead. However, I don't think this is entirely the case. While Serene might indeed be dead in some unspecified capacity, the last scene shown of her in Finon's memory suggests that she has been shattered. Perhaps her soul was somehow shattered. All in all, since Serene seemingly has connections to fate and destiny, I suspect that her story will involve a bunch of spiritual or temporal or even Memoria-related shenanigans. Okay, enough about those two. The second Chrysos Heir we meet with Finon is the High Priestess of Janusopolis, Tribi. Now, betraying her adorable appearance and disposition, Tribi, or Tribios I should say, is a demigod who has already laid her god to rest and inherited their core flame, with said god being Giannis, the Titan of Passage and eldest of the three fates. Oh, and the reason Tribios refers to herself in plural is because, well, remember how Aglaya says that each Chrysos Heir is born with both a gift and a defect? Yeah, in Tribios' case, she is she multiplied by 3. We've got Tribi, Trian, and Trinon. Honestly, I'm not sure if this is supposed to be the blessing or the defect, or both at the same time, but I'll leave it up to you to decide. The other demigod we know of is, of course, Aglaya, the Gold Weaver, the inheritor of the Roman Scoreflame from the creation titan Mnestia, the chrysalis of gold. And like Finon and Serene, Aglaya is also a variation of another OG flame chaser called Apanya. Aside from being the leader of the Chrysos Heirs, Aglaya currently serves as the de facto protector of the Eternal City Okhima, a position that was temporarily submitted to her by Okhima's Council of Elders due to the dire situation Amphoreus is in. During the mission A Cleansing of Gold, we get to witness some of the brewing tension between Aglaya and certain members of the council such as Canis, who are growing more irritated day by day with the leadership of the Chrysos Heirs. After the Black Tide of Madness induced the Titan War on Amphoreus, the Eternal City of Okhima has become a sanctuary for humanity beneath the light of the world-bearing Titan, Kefili. So it's interesting to see what kind of political side plots will take place between the Council of Elders and the Chrysos Heirs. For now though, let's stay focused on the main plotline, which in the case of this Trailblaze mission, was the hunting and slaying of the Mad King, Nikador. From the moment Kalis and Dan Heng met with Phainon and Tribios at the Abyss of Fate, it became evident that the first main antagonist was going to be the Strife Titan Nikador, the Lance of Fury. Also, this is a complete tangent that I forgot to mention earlier, but during their initial conversation, Kalis points out how he and Phainon look like they could be siblings, which may or may not end up being important later depending on how the story goes. Anyway, back to the main story, Nikador. Although legends and bards refer to him as a titan of calamity and a mad king, Mydemos explains how in the ancient past Nikador wielded his blade in defense of Amphoreus. Thus, the people of Castrum Kremnos revere the Lance of Fury as a god of honor, valor, and righteous warfare. Mydemos' account strongly corroborates the sentiment I highlighted earlier, which is that Amphoreus' creation myths and legends are just that. They are mere legends shy from the actual truth. In reality, the origins of the Titans, where they come from and what their purpose is, remains an enigma. Wink wink. I thought I had a solid idea of what the Titans are, but then the Trailblazer and Castoris met Naias, the embodiment of Nikador's reason, and he completely changed my perspective on the matter. On that note, when the Black Tide befell Amphoreus, it corrupted both gods and men alike. One such ruler who was slowly driven to the brink of insanity was none other than King Euripon, Mydemos' very father and Lord Sovereign of Castrum Kremnos. As for Mydemos' mother, she was a fierce yet kind warrior known as Queen Gorgo, a descendant of the legendary King Gorgo, and she was said to be able to kill a lion with her bare hands. Due to the bewitchment of the Black Tide, which corrupted both Euripon and his advisors, the Kremnoan king succumbed to paranoia, wishing his own flesh and blood dead. To protect her son, Gorgo accused her husband of insanity, challenging him to a duel. Unfortunately, she was betrayed and poisoned before the fight, allowing for Euripon to cut her throat with his blade. But the queen's death was not for nothing. She had bought Mydemos enough time to gather his men and defect into Ojima. This is where the first major plot twist of Amphoreus happens. You see, if you look around in Ojima, you will find plenty of stories and poems that describe Nikador as a heartless, foolish, warmongering god who thirsts only for bloodshed and destruction. The reality is that most of these tales were written by the enemies of Castrum Kremnos during the Chrysos War, and thus were filled with biased political undertones which sought to depict the Kremnoan god in a negative light, as humans almost always tend to do. One of the best examples of this is the story of Princess Bepses, who in the mythical iteration is said to have been the most beautiful woman in the land, blessed by the chrysalis of gold Mnestia themselves, and that the savage Nikador, in his lustful pursuit of her, drove Bepses to her untimely death. Yeah, so if you take a look at the real historical account, you'll discover that Bepses was the daughter of a rebellious lord who fought against Castrum Kremnos, and after her father and 3 brothers were slain in battle, she took her own life to avoid being humiliated by the Kremnoan army. Nikador had little to no involvement in any of the tales which depict him as barbaric or warmongering. On the contrary, when the Black Tide blighted the world, he fought against it and then went into slumber when his power began to fade. Little did the Titan know that his own followers, namely the crazed King Euripon and his advisors, were already plotting a treacherous scheme against their god. The people of Castrum Kremnos built their city on top of a dormant volcano, granting them direct access to indefinite and sustainable sources of thermal and geothermal energies. This, in turn, allowed the Kremnoans to develop their iconic soul-forging technique, which involves 2 stages: the sculpting stage, where special stone is shaped into various machinery, and the soul-forging stage, where this stone is imbued with golden blood, granting it sentience. The Kremnoans' unique position gave them unrivaled efficiency at crafting countless such machinery, most of which were put to good use in Castrum Kremnos' many war campaigns throughout history. Initially, both Midei and Phainon mistakenly assumed that in his madness, Nikador abandoned all of his honor and ordered the Kremnoans to construct him immortal bodies using their soul-forging technique, through which the Lance of Fury could continue to survive rather than die a glorious death in battle. However, after Castoris and the Trailblazer meet Naias, they discover that it was in fact King Eurypon and his men who took advantage of Nikador's weakened state after battling the Black Tide by splitting his soul into 5 fragments and binding them into specially crafted blades that they ordered from the legendary master craftsman Cartonus. Eurypon then hosted countless gladiatorial death tournaments to feed the Strife Titan with blood and exacerbate his descent into madness. Not long after, Crown Prince Maidimos returned to Castrum Kremnos with the support of Aglaia Zochima to kill his father and put an end to that accursed reign. Castoris and Caelus travel back to an era shortly before Eurypon's death. Oh, and if you're curious how Castoris can determine this, reading books, both historical and mythological, is one of her favorite hobbies, so she is well versed in this stuff. As it turns out, before the Kremnoans split Nikador's soul into its 5 fragments, those being courage, honor, tenacity, sacrifice, and reason, the Titan had already anticipated his deteriorating condition and separated his most important fragment, his reason, from the remainder of his divinity, hoping that reason would one day respond to its calling and return to fulfill Nikador's sacred mission. This reason is what took form as Naias. Before his encounter with the Trailblazer and Castoris, Naias would try time and time again to quell the blasphemy which was taking place in his land. The saddest thing about this is that Naias didn't recall why he was there or even who he was, but he simply knew that he was a warrior and he had to stop whatever folly was taking place in Castrum Kremnos. Yet, as the Trailblazer and Castoris would realize, in all other versions of his story, Naias would fail countless times over and over and over and over and over again. The presence of these failed attempts might support the hypothesis I mentioned earlier at the start of this video, with Amphoreus' story being influenced by different narratives from the 3 eons all taking place at once, similar to what the witch Anya Andersdotter had in Simulanka. Alternatively, it could just be symbolic of how Nikador needed Castoris and Caelus to help him regain his senses. Alas, Naias finally managed to complete his task. So after informing the Trailblazer and Castoris that his soul was corrupted beyond salvation, the Strife Titan was given a glorious death, befitting a warrior, by Phynon, Danhang, Trailblazer, Castoris, and of course, Maidimos, who will go on to inherit Nikador's core flame of strife. Now, before anyone goes crazy in the comments and says, "Oh my god, he's spoiling the story!" No, I'm not. At least not if you have been doing the storybook with Mam. She basically tells you which core flames belong to which Chrysos Heir over there. That's how we almost definitively know that Phynon is the inheritor of Kefali, by the way. Oh, and Castoris will eventually claim the Death Core Flame, but I don't think anyone needed me to clarify this. I'm pretty sure everyone already knows this, unless they've bbeen playing with a blindfold and earplugs too. I suppose I could tell you this about Castoris. After the heroes defeated Nikador, she inquires him about Thanatos' whereabouts, claiming that the Death Titan took her other half since birth. I am pretty sure that this other half is the dragon Memosprite, which she summons in combat, because if you talk to Castoris, she will tell you that she once read a story where a princess transforms into a dragon. So if Castoris is the princess, while her Memosprite is the dragon, then you can put 1 and 1 together and figure out that this dragon is the other half Thanatos denied her since birth. At any rate, we have reached the end of this video. Amphoreus is absolutely amazing, and I can assure you that I am just getting started with it. So as always, a huge thanks to everyone who supports this channel on Patreon, and thank you for watching till here. For now, I've been My Name for Now, and I will catch you in the next one. Take care.